Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing the LTR visa. And this is actually a video, I thought I had kind of fleshed this out in prior videos some time back. I did a video about the review process pertaining to the LTR itself, which, by the way, we've yet to actually see one of these go through the review process. But because nobody's aged up their LTR enough, it hasn't been around long enough, we're likely to see this, I expect, next calendar year, sometime in 2026, I imagine. But basically, the premise of this video is the LTR something of a quote-unquote tax trap? Now, what am I talking about here? Well, candidly, a very effective way of, for lack of a better term, trapping a person, an individual, into tax liability would be to explain that, hey, in the instance of the LTR, hey, you're not taxable on any money earned outside of Thailand. Okay, fair enough. But then not really get into the notion of tax residency itself, which, okay, 180 days spent in Thailand makes you a tax resident. Couple that with the issue of inbound fund remittance into Thailand, and the whole issue of attributable earnings becomes somewhat opaque. We deal with this, or I should say the accountants here at the firm deal with this quite frequently in matters pertaining to corporate VAT, especially where we have foreign directors that work regionally. And oftentimes VAT will not necessarily apply to certain work, even though it is a Thai company, because the director, for example, will be doing the work outside of Thailand. So the work is not attributable to Thailand. So for example, we had a client some time ago who spent like 2 months in Malaysia doing work. It billed through the Thai company. Yes, it's subject to Thai corporate income tax. Yes, that person's salary they draw off the company is subject to personal income tax. But as far as VAT went, under the specifics of that, under the circumstances, and again, everything is different. Don't take this as a one-size-fits-all piece of advice or piece of analysis. I'm just giving it to you as I've been told by the accounting folks here at the firm. Basically, VAT was not attributed to that because it was not an activity occurring in Thailand, and therefore VAT was not relevant. So look at that in the inverse with regard to the LTR. Again, part of the selling point on that was, oh, you're not liable for taxes on anything earned/accrued outside of Thailand. But now let's look at the totality of the circumstances. I almost said totalitarian there. I've been using that word a lot lately. But the totality of the circumstances surrounding someone who might be in Thailand on an LTR visa. And again, we're merely surmising here because we have not actually seen one of these things reviewed. But as I discussed in prior videos, they talked when this thing was created that there would be the equivalent of an audit looking backwards on the 5 years someone has already spent in Thailand utilizing the LTR visa when a request for the renewal of the further 5 years is put in. So we know that there is going to be some sort of review associated with the LTR. We don't know what it looks like yet because nobody has yet gotten to the 5-year mark because it hasn't been 5 years that this visa has existed. That said, let's look at it inverted from the notion of attributed VAT. Okay, you're in Thailand for 180 days in a given calendar year, and there's been inbound remittances to you, the person, within that calendar year. You know, again, it's going to depend on the given circumstances in the case, but I can see a number of different fact patterns playing out where a reviewer, an auditor, for lack of a better term, looks at that situation and says, hey, you had inbound remittances of 50,000 US dollars, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5 million baht. You were in Thailand for 180 days or more, or let's say you were in Thailand a full calendar year. Let's say you were here the entire 365 days out of the year, and that money came in. How can that be determined? I think you have a hard sell saying that that's fully, that that's exempt. Again, it's an odd question, and not one I think people really want to be put under, at least the scrutiny of, when they're dealing with maintaining their visa status. So this is not a video to create consternation. It's a video, if anything, it's a free warning. You know, I've been right about a lot of stuff that I've taken a lot of guff for on YouTube, okay, across the board. And it hadn't done me a lot of good, but whatever. I just feel like sometimes there's just what's right is right. And in this circumstance, frankly, I don't really want to see a whole backlash a year from now, or a little longer probably, from folks who are on the LTR and finding out that they're being scrutinized and they're being told, hey, we're assuming that you made all this money. It's now put on you to rebut our presumption that you are liable for taxes on this. And again, until we see an actual review, it's hard to speculate. But I'm just putting it out there that I have looked at this thing backwards, frontwards, sideways. The work authorization thing is spurious to me, the legal reasoning behind it. I get into that in more depth in another video made contemporaneously with this one, as we recently were assisting some folks dealing with the LTR, actually one individual dealing with trying to get an LTR, and in that set of circumstances, I finally fleshed out, and not me, but sort of tangentially through the work that colleagues of mine in the firm were doing, I was able to sort of flesh out and ascertain, okay, now I can parse out what they're talking about with this quote-unquote work authorization. As discussed in there, it looks a lot more like DTV. Call it work exemption rather than work authorization might be the better word. That said, back to the main tax issue here. Similar to that, we've been looking at this backwards, frontwards, and sideways for a number of years as we've been assisting folks in getting these kind of visas. And I really think there's a strong possibility that people are going to get into their review for getting a new one of these, and there's going to be substantial scrutiny attached to their past activities, especially their past remittances of funds inbound to Thailand, taken into account with their physical presence in Thailand, which might attach tax residency, and especially in the situations where somebody spent, over 300 days out of the year, let's put it that way, where it's very difficult to say, well, this was earned abroad. Well, how? I can see, and I sort of have put myself in the mind of these kind of bureaucrats that are in the Revenue Department of things in the past, and, I see how they think. How are they going to look at that? I don't know that it's going to look very favorable to the person holding the LTR. So the point of this video is to act as a sort of warning based on what I've seen with respect to this thing and my sort of overall analysis of the possible, unforeseen circumstance, the possible unforeseen consequences resulting in a person's initial 5-year period in Thailand when they're going through the review to get their second 5 years, how that may play out. Again, remains to be seen. We'll certainly be keeping you updated on this channel as the situation evolves.